Yep, kia ora koutou. My name's Khan. We own and operate a small drone business down the South Island. Basically operate all over the countryside. I see that previous presentation stole a little bit of my glory and then told me I'm too expensive as well, but I'd like to challenge that. So really I'm not a specialist at presentations. I'm just going to flick through a few flashy pictures and videos and hopefully I can waffle for 20 minutes. A little bit about who we are. We saw a little bit about the Part 102 cert before in that previous slide. It's not an easy task to have and maintain, the structure to be able to do that. There's a whole lot of rules and regulations we obviously need to follow for drone work within New Zealand. Those of you that are flying drones, whether it's under 101 or 102, have a fairly good understanding of what's required there. So ProVision's been operating for a couple of years. That's built on a bit of experience from a previous life. We're really working in a bunch of sectors in conservation, forestry and the ag sectors, and I'm really happy to continue growing that in the conservation space. It's really where my passion lies. So on top of the Part 102 cert, we've got a whole lot of ratings that allow us to do spraying and spreading of VTAs and spraying of agrochemicals. And on top of that too, there's extra certs to fly big drones over 25 kilos. So I'll get into that a little bit later on. So the main guts of the services we're offering, bit of aerial mapping, probably not quite to the detail of the previous slide, but a lot of that we're doing for our customers, providing them the data, and then they're doing a lot of the analytics after the fact. A lot of spraying and spreading, a lot of drone guys getting around the countryside now with a spraying drone. Doing agricultural work for farmers and crops, but we are really targeting the specialist stuff, up in the mountains and the real unique stuff and providing services in the conservation space. Spreading, we get into the VTA space, doing a bunch of spreading in that sense. It's pretty cool to kind of announce that we've just been awarded our first offshore island spreading eradication project. We only found out late last week, so we'll be heading off into the depths of the Indian Ocean and doing a job out there, which is pretty cool, operating off the back of a ship. Heavy lifting, as the drone technology evolves, this is a really exciting space. It's quite new in New Zealand at the moment. There's only 3 heavy lift drones operating in New Zealand, and we're operating 2 of them. Touch on that a little bit later, how that sort of fits in the conservation space. The thermal inspection stuff, obviously everyone's seen thermals now and thermal drones and what they can do. We're trying to take that to the next level and how we operate that. And again, at the bottom of that, we offer a little bit of consultancy and advisory in that space too. So majority of the fleet that we operate, obviously none of that's to scale. The little DJI Mavic 4T will sit in my hand there, but the bigger drones like the Flycard and the Agris T50 wouldn't sit on either of those 2 tables. They're big beasts, so really big drones. The Matrice 300, that's our real workhorse. We've got 4 of those, and we've got 2 of those operating pretty much every fine night of the week at the moment on some of our thermal surveillance work we're doing with one of our main clients. The little Mavic 4T is just a little pocket rocket that offers a few cool little features. Not quite the thermal sensitivity as the bigger drone, but a really handy little drone you can throw in your backpack and throw up anywhere. The Flycart's our big lifting drone. Mechanical winch that goes up and down. You can remote deploy payloads anywhere and everywhere, so that's a really cool new tool. NETS2025, that's a little wee spray drone. Some cool technology in that, and I'll touch on some of that a bit later. We've managed to modify some of the spraying features on that and add some automation into it too. That's quite an exciting little tool. And the big Agris T50, that's our big spraying and spreading drone. So some pretty cool tech there. You obviously see they're all the same brand. They're all DJI branded drones. We decided to stick with the DJI brand because we can do some modifications to the off-the-shelf technology in them and get them doing some pretty cool stuff. But again, they are superior to anything else when it comes to the technology and the hardware and the software in them. I'll just touch on each of the services with a little bit more detail. Aerial mapping, you would have seen a lot of that in the last slide. Basically what we're doing there is a lot of high-res imagery for clients, using the the P1 full frame camera, getting really high resolution images, and you're able to see previous, you're able to zoom in and out and look at your plant species and that sort of thing. So we're doing a lot of river monitoring, a lot of before and after imagery stuff for clients. And again, with the RTK station, you can get that right down to centimetre level accuracy. And with all your GIS and and sharing on cloud systems, it's pretty cool. We can do a lot of that in the field and have data to clients the next day. A little bit of some of the mapping we do. This is an example of a gull control operation. Sort of we're trying to design a plan there to control the gulls, so we needed to find out roughly how many were there. Previously, the client would fly around a helicopter and go 10, 20, 50, 100 and be relatively inaccurate with their gull count. So we could throw a thermal map over an RGB map, and with a bit of AI tech, we're able to count super accurately how many gulls were actually there. So doing pre and post operation thermal mapping with that, so really effective. Bit of 3D modelling, so that again we're doing that for clients' projects where they wanted to see in detail their project from above. It's good for your planning. You can obviously identify your weed species, but you can also mark out all your hazardous areas. You see all the bluffs and that through that system there, so you can, before you send operators down the hill to do any weed control or anything, you can identify all those. We saw the 3D panos in the previous one. I thought I was the only cool guy doing this in the country, but it turns out everyone else is doing it. This is a wilding pine operation up at near Mount Cook. You can see all the different control methods here. That's not a plantation forest, that's all wilding pines, and Sherman knows all about that. But you can see in the lower screen here, they've done a whole lot of mulching and then some aerial booms spraying up above, and there's some ground control on that too. But this is flying at 180 metres above ground level, so obviously we need to get a whole lot of regulatory stuff signed off to be able to do all this. But great for stakeholders when you're showing them the project you're working on. You get a really good bird's eye view of what's going on, and the client's getting us to do that semi-regularly, so you can keep on top of all the control methods that are happening. And with that same data, you can measure areas of progress and that sort of thing too. So again, it's great for reporting. The spraying and spreading side of things. So we're doing a bunch of projects on wilding pines and gorse and broom and that sort of thing using these Agris drones. This current one that we're using's got a 50 kg spreader and a 40 litre spray tank, and all of your spray rates are all adjustable. You can adjust them on the fly anywhere from a litre a hectare to 400 litres a hectare, and getting really good coverage. So the idea with these drones is your job's all mapped out, and you push go and stand there and have a cup of tea and put new batteries and chemical in it when it comes back, and it's all doing it on its own, and the data that it spits out at the end of the day is really, really impressive. So we do sort of a mix of fully autonomous and manual type spraying. So that's just a screenshot of the controller. You can see on there where the drone is, where it's spraying. You can get it to avoid obstacles, or in that case there's a little bit of native there on an island, and the drone fully autonomously misses all that and sprays all the stuff you want it to, and you look at the data that it spits out at the end of it. It's really, really neat. Another little video. This is a fully autonomous drone operating spraying lupins. I apologise to all the Instagrammers out there that love the lupins. Obviously a very invasive weed down south there that we're dealing with a lot. You watch this little fella here. I'm not doing anything, just standing there looking at it. So it's getting the lupins and it's working its way around a big matagari bush there. The spray goes on and off. Fully autonomous, yeah. So pretty neat bit of tech. And the sort of data that spits out at the end of it there, that job there, you can see there's a mixture of autonomous spraying with the really, really straight lines, and then when you put me in control, you get squiggly lines all over the show, so you can see the manual spraying. But yeah, really effective to be able to use both techniques at the same time there. Again, the spraying drone, this video on the left here, you can see him working along. We've got a bit of native in between, all fully autonomous, switches off, and he comes back on again there. So this is spraying at a 200 litre water rate using the horrible brew TDPA. and yeah, nailing these wilding pines. But you can see the agitation in the trees there as the drone goes over, and this is a technique that I really want to work with some clients on, and our ability to lower rates or change chemical brews, because all the brews we're using at the moment are designed for helicopter spraying, and the method's quite different. You won't see a helicopter agitate your plants like that. If you can imagine a helicopter coming over and just laying a carpet of chemical on, the drone application is quite a lot different. We're really punching that chemical right down into the plant. So a lot of opportunity there to look at chemical brews and water rates and that sort of thing. So yeah, I'm looking at you, Sherman. We've got a bit to work on there. So the same job. This is only 4 weeks later. You can see the coverage there and how well that's dying off. So we're continuing to monitor this as we go. But yeah, first stages, it's looking really, really good. So that's at a 200 litre water rate with the same active helicopters using for TDPA. The lower bit there, you can see a little bit of green around the edges. We obviously had to pull right back on some of the edges of the stuff because we had some native in there, the QE2 block, and they were really concerned about the natives. So we'll probably see a little bit of greenery around the edges, but that's easily fixed up at a later date. So again, yeah, all autonomous, and yeah, send it. The heavy lifting stuff. So there's a photo I slipped in the slide on Monday. Basically got back from a trip in Fiordland on Sunday, working off flightless here down in Dusky Sound, using this big lifting drone, and we were deploying predator traps all over islands in Dusky Sound. I'll touch a little bit on that use case shortly. But the heavy lifting drone, it's a 40 kg lift, and with that 40 kgs, I can autonomously, if I wanted to, deliver that 16 kilometres and return again. So pretty cool bit of technology. We've got a mechanical winch that goes up and down, and you can deploy stuff and drop it off. So again, you can do some manual and autonomous stuff in there. Pretty cool drone, this one. It's really, really designed not to crash. It runs dual batteries, so you got a bit of contingency there. So if a battery failed, it will return home on a single battery. It's got 8 motors. If a motor failed, it will fly home again. And if it really turns to shit, it's got a self-deploying parachute that just pops out and it flutters down to the ground. So this trap lifting stuff, this was a real special project for me. As soon as I got in the drone game, I've always wanted to do something like this, deliver traps on remote islands in Fiordland, and we were able to do this last week. We had 220 traps to deliver on Pigeon Island, and we kind of allowed ourselves a few days, but with trappers on the ground, we were able to deliver these traps and set them all in a day. So basically there's a bit of planning involved. I laid it all out on the island on my GIS system, and then designed all the drop points, and then put them in the GPSs of the trapping crew, and they would walk to the drop points, call me up on the radio, and basically we could put it through a little hole in a canopy, and the guys would set the move on to the next one. So yeah, massively successful operation that. There goes the map there. I know some of you might recognise some of the Gumby faces on the other side there, working with some really cool guys down there. All the trappers are on a voluntary basis, and we managed to do that whole project in a day, which meant we got to go diving and fishing and stuff afterwards. Another use case for the delivery drone, we've been doing a bunch of seedling delivery. Initially started in the forestry sector and provided a really good solution for them. Planting crews would historically carry hundreds of trees down a face and plant, and then break their backs trying to get more seedlings and that sort of thing. But now they only carry a satchel each down the side of the hill. Might have 20 guys across the hill. They call me up and they run out of seedlings, and I have another 100 hanging right in front of them when they need it. So been an absolute game changer in the forestry scene. Some of the crews are 50% more efficient in what they're doing out there on the day. But again, we're doing a lot of this with native planting as well. Just this week, I was up with the Summit Road Society in the Port Hills delivering some native trees to their volunteers over on the hillside. So again, that's pretty cool with just a little custom cage we made up, and just being able to put those trees right to the person when they need them is really cool. So the thermal surveys, that's sort of what ProVision was initially built on, something we really specialise in with our drones there. We're doing a whole range of stuff now for a range of clients. Zip probably being our main one at the moment. We're their drone partner. All of their drone operations we're doing for them and advising to them on that sort of stuff. So a lot of rabbit elimination, hare elimination projects, and then we work with a few of the predator-free groups too on detecting possums and bits and pieces. We talk about the specs on the camera. This is the coolest bit of tech. There's 5 different sensors within that camera, and the main one being the thermal camera. Yeah, the resolution on that, it's double what most of your standard thermal cameras are that you'd use on your projects, and the sensitivity on that's just next level. We're able to, or if you look at this video here, that's just a deer laying down. You wait till it stands up, you'll see the heat signature of where the deer was lying, but then also as it starts moving, you can see its individual footprints as well. So the sensitivity on that camera is next level. But then it's paired with a night light or an IR light, which our eyes and pest eyes can't see. So if we find a thermal signature, we can then put a side-by-side screen on it, fire up the night light, and you can identify your target every time. Along with that, you've got a rangefinder, so you can tell how far away a target is, but if it's a point of interest, you can actually shoot a waypoint at it, so it's actually mapping that waypoint where the target is rather than where the drone is, and that's a cool bit of technology as well. 2 minutes, yep. Okay, there we go. That's the IR light there, thermal side by side, and that's the old here there. He's obviously heard the drone, but he's not too phased about it. And that IR light, no one can see that. We can only see that on a controller, so pretty cool bit of tech. Another cool job we did down in Fiordland, we're engaged to try and develop some techniques for getting rid of deer on remote islands, swimming deer. So we were working off the back of the ship there with our thermal drone, finding the deer on the islands and then deploying dogs on them. These deer tend to take to the water pretty quickly when they've got a dog on their ass, and we're able to dispatch them. So there was 4 known deer on an island. We got all 4 of them with the drone and the dog tool. So that was a pretty cool operation. You can see there, when the drone's operating, it's using all of its sensors at once. You can see the deer quite clearly in the middle. The drone's in the exact same location with the RGB camera on the left, can't see it at all. And then with the zoom camera on the side there, if you use your imagination, you can kind of see it back there in the corner there. But it goes to show how effective the thermal tool is on that. Oh, this video might take a wee while, but this is our client with Zip. He's got no lights on at all. He's got a thermal binocular on his helmet like the one you've seen upstairs. There's a rabbit and a fodder beet crop there. We've got the drone above him, and we're talking him in. A cool development we're actually using. We're all Starlink connected, so he's got earbuds in, and we've just got a full conversation over WhatsApp. Radios were a bit of a pain in the ass because you had to take your hands off the tools. Being able to have earbuds in and have full-blown comms that way is a game changer. Bit of pre and post monitoring with the thermal stuff. You can see there, aerial 1080 for hares, a project that Zip's working on. Pre-treatment, hares everywhere. Post-treatment, hares gone. So thermal drones are using as a tool there. Bird monitoring, braided river birds. We do a lot of the stuff for Environment Canterbury, finding native nesting birds in rivers. Again, that's a bit of a game changer in comparison to the traditional tools they use for monitoring birds. And you look at you can see the scale of what we do with some of our bird monitoring here. This is pre them doing an aerial boom spraying operation. They need to know where all the nesting birds were. So we did that over 2 mornings and found all the nesting birds, and then they were able to develop their spray program around that. Now obviously everyone loves to see the old raccoon in the top of the tree there, but you see the thermal sensitivity of it. You watch what climbs up behind them in the thermal there. Yeah, the old rat cruising through as well. So, but you can see with the light, possum's not worried about it whatsoever. Some cool stuff. Drones are obviously pretty innovative, but we're playing with some other cool things around it. This is our little wee spraying drone here that I've modified. Got approved by CAA with the mod, and it's fully autonomously there, finding the tree crown centre based on some information we've fed it, and that's spraying the tree all on its own. We can tell it how much to spray, how many times to spin around, what to do, when to do it, how to do it, and we're having some massive successes in these trials here, as you can see by the dead tree, but we've got a fair way to go looking at that picture there. Well, this one here is a combination of tools. So Doc knew of a couple of false tamarisk plants in the Godley River. They wanted to survey a much bigger area, to put a whole team out there to do that. Okay, I've gone over time. So we basically flew 315 hectares there in 3 hours and controlled everything in place. Right? You know, if you imagine you had to do that with a team, it would have been quite a big deal. I think I've done my time.